Welcome into Stadium Drive Week 2, and tonight we're going to be at John Glenn High School in New Concord for a local rivalry, a crosstown rivalry. The John Glenn Muskies are hosting the Cambridge Bobcats. John Glenn is 1-0 on the year after shutting out Circleville 28-0 in Week 1. Cambridge coming off a loss in Week 1 to Indian Creek, where they gave up almost 340 yards rushing. So going to be a chance for Cambridge to bounce back. This is a game that we haven't seen for a couple of years now, this rivalry. So good to see it here tonight. We'll be there live from John Glenn High School at 6 o'clock until about 6:30 or 6:45. We'll have some people stop by and we'll have some fun. But I talked to head coach Matt Edwards of John Glenn and Ray Leek, the head coach of the Cambridge Bobcats, and we're going to get into those interviews. And we'll start with Coach Leek of the Bobcats here on Stadium Drive Week 2. Thanks for tuning in here on the Storied Rivals Podcast Network, Stadium Drive, wherever you get your podcast, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whether you're watching on YouTube as well. But make sure you check out the live pregame show tonight at John Glenn High School live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So that way we can get you set up for this crosstown rivalry, the John Glenn Muskies and the Cambridge Bobcats. All right, we're here with Coach Leek of the Cambridge Bobcats ahead of Week 2 against the John Glenn Muskies. Coach, really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And I kind of want to get into Week 2, but before we do that, I want to talk about your game against Indian Creek last week because, it's really crazy to read that they have two offensive linemen, brothers, by the way, that are both 6'3" and 6'6", 330 pounds, 360 pounds. To have that on an offensive line on any high school football team, that's just unbelievable to try to go up against. And they had almost 340 yards of rushing in the game against you. And you were still in that game, until the end, really. You kept it close. It's not very often that you give up that much yardage on the ground and you're still able to keep yourself in the game. How do you evaluate kind of the effort that your guys gave to not only keep it close, but have a chance to win in the fourth quarter and only be down 2 scores?
Yeah, I think as the game got going, we just kind of got our feet under us. We knew we graduated a lot of guys from last year, so the more varsity experience that our guys get, the better they're going to be. So that second half really told us a lot about what we had, the fight our kids had. We were outsized. There's no question about it. You just listed the stats, but the great thing is in high school sports, you don't see a lot of guys that size week in and week out. So luckily for us, Week 1 we got it out of the way. But yeah, they have a great line, a good back. Our kids fought, but we came out on the short end. But you can't question our kids' heart and their fight in that game.
Yeah, and then you had a sophomore quarterback make his first start in that game. He had a 67% completion percentage, 277 yards, 3 touchdowns. Did have a couple picks, but that's his first career start against a pretty good team. What do you expect to see from him now as he's got a start under his belt? What do you expect to see in Week 2 against John Glenn as he kind of gets more comfortable in your offense and just playing on Friday nights?
Yeah, kind of like him and the entire team, when they get more experience, they feel more comfortable. They're going to play better. So we look for great strides from Week 1 to Week 2 for Garrett Carpenter. He's going to be a great quarterback. Again, he's young, first start ever. As he settled in, his decision-making was a little better. I think the game slowed down for him a little bit. So we're excited for Garrett. Again, we got work to do, but he's only going to continue to get better each week.
Yeah, and the speed of the game, it is very difficult to kind of pick up, especially if it's your first start against a good team like that. Like, what has the conversations been like with him to try to just kind of get him settled down? Like, what did you tell him going into Week 1? Was there anything that you said to him to kind of get him settled down? Did you kind of scheme up some kind of easy throws, easy plays to kind of just get him into a rhythm? What was that like going into Week 1?
Fortunately for Garrett, he's a kid who the pressure's not too much for him. You can't tell if he's rattled. You can't tell if something's bothering him. He's just a great kid who's going to work and give it his all. So for us, we didn't have to tell him too much. We tried to keep the game plan simple, keep the passes shorter, just so his reads weren't taking as long to develop. But we trust him. We want to put the ball in his hands, and we think he gives us the best chance to win. So we're going to continue to work with him, and he's going to get better each time, like I said. But he's a very smart kid. He plays football, baseball, basketball, competitor, so he understands sports and he gets the game. Football may be newer to him, only being a second year at quarterback, but he's going to be a great one.
So now let's look forward to week 2 against John Glenn. It's a local rivalry that we
Yeah.
really haven't seen in the last couple of years. But John Glenn has a much different style compared to Indian Creek, who you played last week. So they're more of a spread you out kind of offense.
Yeah.
They'll move it through the air. So what are you seeing on film? What are you doing with your guys this week to kind of get them ready for? Because you played a physical style of football week 1. It's in the trenches. It's ground and pound. And now week 2, it's going to be spread you out. They're going to move you around quite a bit. Like, what are you doing with your guys this week to get ready for the Muskies here in week 2?
Yeah, I mean, they're still going to be physical, but they're a different style. Indian Creek has a couple formations where they're going to run the ball right at you behind those big tackles. But John Glenn, they spread the ball out, but they're still looking to run the ball. That's their main goal, is to run the ball. So we still have to stop the run. That doesn't change for us. We've got to be more prepared in the secondary because they are more balanced. They're more 60-40 as far as run pass ratio. So our guys can't fall asleep back there because they like the screen game a lot. But truly, when it comes down to it, they're trying to spread you out to run the ball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Now, what are you doing as because you talked about last week it was kind of a slower start. It took you 2 quarters to kind of get into the flow of the game, and then it made it a little bit difficult for you kind of come fourth quarter to try to really bring that game back to even. What do you do now week 2? Is there something like, do you have plays kind of schemed up for your first drive to kind of get you into a rhythm faster, or is it something defensively that you've got to do? Like, what do you do game plan wise to come out of the game and come out of the gates a little bit faster, so that way it doesn't put as much pressure on you in the second half of the game to try to close it out, or just keep the game close?
No, I think it's just number one, having that experience, and two, our play calling. We've got to know our quick hitters and things that are going to spark us and get us going. Um, so that's us as coaches, but as players, we've got to be ready. I think a lot of our kids' first time playing a varsity game was last week, so they weren't used to the speed of the game. So I think as they go on and as we gain that experience and we play more football games on Friday nights, it's going to slow down for them, and they're going to be ready for that speed, because it is hard to simulate that game speed in practice with the younger guys and scout team. So we'll continue to work on that in practice. And as coaches, we're going to draw up our plays that will get us going and try to go up tempo.
Cool. Well, Coach Leek, I really appreciate the time to chop it up about week 2 ahead of John Glenn. Good luck this week, and I appreciate you stopping by.
Yep. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, so we're here with head coach Matt Edwards of the John Glenn Muskies joining us here on Stadium Drive ahead of week 2 against the Cambridge Bobcats. Coach, really appreciate you taking the time and opening the season 28-0 win against Circleville on the road. How much of a boost is that to get a win on the road in week 1? Because now you have your next 2 games at home. I'm sure it's a pretty big boost for your team, as now you got a couple games at home, and it's a good opportunity to kind of start the year 3-0.
Well, I mean, obviously getting a win at any time on a Friday night is difficult, and we're excited to be 1-0 at this point. Only half the teams in the state can say that, and one of the things we've struggled with, since we took over the program, is getting off to a fast start. It's actually only our second week 1 win in 9 years. So the fact that we're 1-0, headed into week 2 is a huge boost for our guys, and we're looking forward to this Friday night.
Yeah, and your quarterback Noah Winland on Friday did struggle a little bit, even though you guys won the game. He had 3 interceptions, 61% completion percentage, which isn't bad, but the 3 picks, but didn't obviously affect the game that much because you guys were still able to shut out Circleville. But what do you do now in week 2 against the Bobcats to kind of settle him down, get him into a rhythm early on in the game, so that way the reads are a little bit easier and he's not putting the ball in harm's way as often?
Yeah, obviously we need our quarterback to be a little bit more consistent than as we go through, because like you saw Friday night, our defense, I think, is going to be really good and keep us in a lot of games. And unfortunately, when you're the quarterback, some of the blame goes on your shoulders, and some of it you don't deserve. So yeah, even though it says 3 interceptions on his stat line, when we look at those individual plays, there were a couple of things that went wrong. in addition to just to him. So it was things that we talked about this week, and we hope to fix. And Noah's a battle; he's going to battle for us, and we've stressed the importance of taking care of the football, and we got to start doing that a better job of that.
Is it a thing where the timing of some of the routes were a little bit off, or maybe the receivers weren't in the spots where Noah was anticipating them to be when he released the football? Is it kind of those sort of issues, timing, just kind of working out those kinks, as the season gets rolling?
Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely say that all at least 2 out of the 3 were definitely timing issues, things that happen early in the season as you're playing on a Friday night and playing live for the first time. But again, it's things that as a senior, we expect that he's going to make those plays for us, and we have confidence that he's going to. And we've talked about those things during the course of the week.
Yeah. Now this game against Cambridge on Friday, it's a game that we haven't seen for a couple of years. You guys used to play Cambridge for a number of years there, and then there was a gap there for a couple of years where you guys didn't play. Now you're playing them again this year. Is there a particular reason we haven't seen this kind of local rivalry in the last few years, or is it just kind of a random scheduling of just wanting to play some other competition, just add some variety to your schedule? Why is now the time to bring the Bobcats back onto the Jungland schedule here in 2023?
We're just excited to have him back on the schedule. Obviously, it's a crosstown rivalry. We're neighbors, 10 minutes away or so, and whatever the reasons were, for the last 4 years, we haven't been able to match up. I think for both programs, this is a good game. It's a good game for our communities. It's a good game for high school football. I mean, they're right next door to us, and our kids know their kids, and we're excited about the opportunity to have them back on our schedule, and hopefully it's something that can stay on the schedule for a long time.
So you mentioned your defense. It's going to be the reason you stay in a lot of games this year, and your defense I think is going to have a tough challenge this Friday because Garrett Carpenter, their quarterback, played pretty well on Friday. Devin Ogle had over 100 yards receiving, I believe a touchdown as well. What are you going to do defensively to kind of match up against what Cambridge does? Because they've got a lot of playmakers and a lot of things that could make life a little bit difficult for you this Friday.
Yeah, I think it's going to be that test. I think it's our strongest unit against their strongest unit, and I have a lot of faith in our defensive staff. Coach Bendel has done an incredible job since we got here 9 years ago, and getting our kids ready to play. He's an incredible guy in terms of scouting and making sure that we have the advantage as much as we possibly can, based on what they do. And they've got some playmakers over there, and our kids are aware of that. And we talk about it all the time. Sometimes kids they want to throw the football probably more than anything else, and our front seven is going to have to do a good job of pressuring the quarterback and making him uncomfortable, and that makes the passing game really difficult. So that's been our message all week is to get after the quarterback a little bit and move the pocket and just make sure he's not comfortable sitting back there trying to find his targets.
Is running the ball going to be an emphasis this week for you guys on offense? Because Cambridge did, when in their week 1 game, granted they were playing against a team with monstrous tackles and a great run game, and so they struggled against the run a little bit. But is that something that you're going to try to capitalize on here in week 2? Is run the ball and kind of attack their run defense a little bit to set up things to make things easier for Noah in the pass game?
We'll see how the game flows. Obviously, going into a game, my mindset's always we want to be 50-50. And that doesn't necessarily mean 50-50 run pass. It just means we want 4 or 5 guys to touch the ball, an equal amount of times. And sometimes that means, hand it to them or throwing quick screens to them or whatever it may be. But, I think if an offense becomes one predictable or one-sided, it really plays to the defense's advantage. So to say that we're going to concentrate on the run game versus something else, our goal is to try to go out and spread the ball around and use the entire field and, be 50-50 in terms of, who touches the ball, not necessarily how they get it.
And then the last question for you, Coach. You mentioned that this is the second time in 9 years that you've started the season 1-0, so you're getting off to a quick start. Is there something that you're doing with the guy? Like, is there a message that you give the guys to try to get out and start games a little bit quicker, so that way you don't get behind early? Like, is there a message? Is there something with preparation during the week? What do you do with your guys to make sure that you have them ready to go? So that way they start games fast and then they stay on top of your opponent and you get out of these games, 1-0, 2-0, and hopefully 3-0 as the season goes on.
Yeah, I mean, every week we
Yeah,
talk
I
about
mean,
just
every
trying to be
week we
one and
talk about
zero,
just trying to be one.
that particular week, and so last week was a good start, but that one's done and over with. So our focus going into this week was trying to be 1-0 again this week, and I think the thing that we do here is find out what our kids are most comfortable with, and for example, offensive, if we have the ball first, my first 5 or 6 play calls are going to be the ones that I think our kids execute the best, and the ones that I feel like they're most comfortable with, because it's important in high school football to get off to a good start, and get that momentum on your side. I think it'll be our home opener. It's going to be an incredible atmosphere. I think our kids will be jacked up for that, and we have to kind of um, stay mellow a little bit, and stay focused, and not let our emotions get the best of us. But we'll see how the game goes. Obviously, if our defense is the first group on the field, we have full confidence in our defense, and it may be our best unit. So, again, the key is just to get off to a good start, because I think that momentum carries you all the way through the game on Friday nights.
Well, Coach Edwards, I really appreciate the time chopping on it up about week 2 and getting ready for Cambridge. We'll be there on Friday, and we appreciate the time you stopping by.
Thanks. Always appreciate you having me.